Hello, hello, hello. Welcome. I'm back. Feels good to be back. Back into the swing of things of streaming, which is great. Uh, Hopefully Wi-Fi is good. It's been, I think, 6 or 7 weeks since I've done this. Sounds great. Audio sounds great. It always sounds better without the camera, and then StreamYard can't take the camera and audio, and then that's okay. That's okay. We'll be on StreamYard for a little bit, but Prof and I are looking into other alternatives for different reasons. But yeah, I'm a little congested, but I feel good. I feel great. That was Azure, my latest track that I released very much at the end of May. And then Winsome, my EP that I released in December last year. Still very happy with the post production of that album, EP album, Winsome. And let me go ahead and stop sharing. And let's see how the camera looks. It might be dim as usual. Not bad. Hopefully it'll stay nice and bright. I do have a couple camera lights that I don't use. So that it's kind of faded. Whatever. Thank you for that Ghost Planet for the great music, looking clear and beautiful. Good. I have to kind of brighten up that camera. Maybe I don't know. I won't deal with it. I'll welcome the chat. Thank you guys so much for your well wishes, I guess, if that's the way. Welcome back. Brian Gilmartin says, welcome back. Thank you. Samuel Proctor, good to see you. The Engraver of Sounds has returned. It's good to see you on a Sunday. I know Sundays are busy for you, for a lot of you. Honestly, I would rather stream on a weeknight, but just with my teaching schedule, I just can't. So Sundays it is, but that's okay. Sundays are fun. I like Sundays a lot. Let's go ahead and welcome Ace. You say, huzzah! Welcome back, Madam Essie. Sundays have been dull without your streams. That's so nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. Private Eye, good to see you too. Ghost Planet, thank you for coming. Professor Geek says, Sound Engraver returns. And Big Al says, she's back. Have a great stream. Thank you so much, Big Al. Final Fantasy is also in. And Lynn Green is in just to say hi. And she says, she'll be watching later. Well, that's wonderful of you to drop by and say hi. PK7. I wish it was TK7. No, TK47. Is that the trooper name that got ambushed by Han Solo or whatever? Your stream, a stream by you and Professor Geek, or Professor Geek. That's good. Well, welcome. I hope you guys, or you, like what I have to say. We're going to be talking mostly today, just a little bit of catch up, but not really. We'll talk about writing and maybe art in general, but definitely writing because writing's fun, writing's hard. And I really wanted to talk to you guys about writing my little discoveries the last few months or few weeks of just taking Sundays off just to write, like bookend it like a block of time, which I feel very grateful that I even have that. Um, Brian Gilmartin again, talking to Final Fantasy. Oh, and Samuel Proctor, if you're in, before I forget, wasn't it you who recommended Zelda's the game Zelda Majora's Mask? I have been playing that all summer, and it's been wonderful. So thanks for the recommendation. One sec. All right. Let's continue on down. Samuel says, it's fine. My church ends an hour before the stream, so it's good. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I don't want to go so early because I can use some of that time to write or just relax or meditate in scriptures and all of that. Then I don't like to go so late because Prof and I have our usual date night on Sunday night. All right. So it looks like I have you all here. Um, and oh, TK421. Thanks. Thank you for that. Who am I thinking of? I was thinking of the Assassin Droid 47. Yeah. Oh, what's his name? What's the Assassin Droid's name from Knights of the Old Republic? I think 47 is the number. Samuel Proctor says, I do want to play Breath of the Wild. Maybe I would play Twilight Princess, but I really don't have any interest in the new stuff. But man, I'm kind of obsessed with the Nintendo 64 World of Zelda. I know they had a remake for Nintendo DS. I'm a little obsessed. I loved Ocarina of Time, especially with the battle with Ganondorf, and then ultimately Ganon. I love the soundtrack behind the Battle of Ganon. I love the Battle of Ganon. Like I think it's really fun. I sort of spammed. I I I would always freeze him. Like I wasn't that good. I could shoot fine. I'm getting better at shooting the arrows and the light beam arrows or whatever. But what I ended up doing was taking a whole stash of Deku nuts and then just slamming it in front of him, and he would momentarily freeze, and then I'd get behind his tail, and it was kind of fun. But Ganondorf, I think, is actually, unless I get really good at that game, Ganondorf, I think that part of the battle is a little harder. It's frustrating when you don't time it right. So, but no spoilers for Majora's Mask. I sort of feel like I know what's gonna happen at the end. I'm about 70% done. Um, just a little bit of a sidebar. This might be just so much energy because I'm back. But with Majora's Mask, what had happened with the Nintendo Switch about 5 weeks ago is that it asked for updates. And after we did something, we were troubleshooting, Professor Geek and me, and or I, and it came to the point where our data was erased, or my data for the gameplay, playing the game was erased. So I was up to about 70, 80% finished, completed with Majora's Mask, and it took me forever to get through. And then rather than be disheartened that I had to start all over again, I actually really didn't mind because I liked being in that game so much. And in the second playthrough, so this is my second playthrough of Majora's Mask, I'm going through things a lot faster since I know what to do. So all in all, it's been really fun. I really like the world, the gameplay. I think the 2000 game, 4 years after Ocarina of Time in 1996, a real improvement with the graphics for Nintendo 64. But anyway, that's my game. I didn't or gaming experience. I didn't mean to go into that. NES Zelda. Yeah, I need to do Zelda NES and SNES. Yeah, for sure. Game Boy, Brian Gilmartin is talking about Seasons. Oracle of Seasons for Game Boy Color is on your list. Nice. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of Zelda games out there. And I'm gonna safely say right now, as far as Nintendo 64, I do really like the Mario 64 game, but Zelda is king when it comes to the 64 games, especially Majora's Mask. Um, it's good. The gameplay, the game experiences, I really have no complaints with the actual gameplay of those two games. And the story is really good too, especially Ocarina of Time. I don't know the whole story of Majora's Mask, so no spoilers. All right, anyway, before I lose you all with my game talk, um, a couple of things, just a couple of catch up things. So, yeah, I spent the last few Sundays just really in the world of writing, and I'm gonna be talking about that because if for any serious writer out there, I've got a few things to say that I'm excited to share with you. As far as my music, I was promising. I put a post a couple weeks back on like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you some music content for my channel, in lieu of the missing streams on Sunday because I need to keep some content going for my channel. I didn't really succeed. There were a couple reasons for that. The first reason was I really wanted to spend some time on my transcriptions. Actually, let me share that real quick. I think that would be important to share. 1 second, and then I'll get into some writing stuff. Let's see here. So if you could see that, yeah, perfect. So these don't get a lot of views on YouTube, but I've been really exploring getting better on the piano because I teach piano students now. I teach beginners to about year 2, year 3. I'm year 4 myself. I'm not a master like I am on the violin, but I'm getting better. And with that, I've endeavored to make piano transcriptions of video game pieces that I really like. So actually, this first one here, I'll get back to the top very much. Old Doll is actually it's got like 3,700 views on YouTube, a few sales even because people really like it. It's a horror game. I'm not really interested in horror. But it's a beautiful composition. It's a beautiful melancholic tune of this horror video game. I won't play the game myself, but I appreciated. This was actually a request. One of my piano students actually asked me to um, transcribe this piece for her. I'm like, okay, I'll do that, and I did, and it's pretty popular. Krista is from Terranigma, and by the way, all this is the covers. Well, this is a pretty famous cover, but I spruced it up a little bit. Krista theme, I made that cover. I'm pretty proud of it. Krista is based on this idyllic place in Terranigma. And Terranigma, man, if the Japanese really know how to mess with your heart and soul with their 1996 video games, and I was pretty proud of this one as well because it's a really nice little soundtrack. And then I'm exploring Chrono Trigger. I'd actually like to explore Ocarina of Time too. I have in mind to transcribe the Serenade of Water out of Ocarina of Time because it's a very beautiful piece, and I think I can do a lot of interesting things with it. But Wind Scene is a very popular soundtrack um, uh, out of Chrono Trigger, which is pretty much the most popular video game to date. And I have two versions. So this version for 299 is the original. It's the original as Yasunori Mitsuda had composed just for piano with a couple changes that are more sensible to piano playing. But Wind Scene Reverie is a change that I made in the middle. So the pieces themselves, I have the PDF files, or PDF music scores, but I won't show them. But there are 3 pages for each of these wind scene pieces, and the middle page, the B melody, it's okay. The original is fine, but it just doesn't really work with piano. And so I just wanted to change it into kind of a reverie, whimsical style. And so I'm selling that separately for 199. So this is for intermediate level piano, and I will say that I've looked over the score myself on the piano, on the physical instrument, just to make sure I can do things with relative ease. And it sounds so much better on the piano in person than what I have on the recording because I have YouTube videos of this with the MIDI piano instrument. It's not it's leagues better when you would actually hear a musician work at the score. So take my word for it. One day I will perform these pieces, especially the Chrono Trigger pieces because they're really nice, especially this Wind Scene Reverie. But anyway, those are my piano transcriptions on my site for you. I guess I could share this in the link. That would be good. There we go. Oh wait, that's Cassette Hiss. Okay, that's Cassette Hiss if you want. Can I copy that? Let's see if it does that again. There it is. Okay, Cassette Hiss by my Professor Geek in his music channel because he's getting into music himself. So let me stop sharing there. And yeah, the light is kind of dim. That's my pet peeve, but whatever. Let me grab a drink of water and then talk a little bit more about, and we'll getting into the discussion of writing because I think that's really important. I think I cut myself off muting. It's very important. Writing is very important. So let's talk about writing. So I was talking about transcriptions really quick. And one other reason why I haven't really been updating anything on YouTube channel, my YouTube channel in the way of music, is I've been really dedicated to Super Collider as a pure student who just wants to get better in Super Collider. I will start maybe end of summer, like around September, I'll start Super Collider videos again. I've been taking lessons with Eli Fieldsteel, who's a great instructor. He's a professor himself, and he's giving out, or he's offering. Well, he's happy. He's happy that I'm recommending private lessons. Let me say this right. He's happy for me to share with you guys if you're interested in Super Collider. He takes lessons like one-on-one, just like with private instruction. But oh my goodness, this is a separate video altogether. It's really putting a fire under me. Like, oh my gosh, I got to get this right. And so for the last few weeks, for the last couple of months in the summer, I've been learning this new specific skill inside this very specific environment in Super Collider. And I'm just so happy to like work through the mechanics. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm taking notes and I'm getting better. And then my last lesson with him, he's totally a teacher in this regard, and I accept that because I'm a teacher too. He's like, okay, you know enough. Maybe we could start composing with what you know in Super Collider now. And I'm like, oh man, because composing in Super Collider is not intuitive for me like composing in Logic Pro or composing on a sheet of music paper. Composing in Super Collider is a whole other animal to skin, and it is slow. It is very slow for me. I'm learning day by day and I'm practicing every single day and just getting a little bit further. And so YouTube has really just I've just had to say no to YouTube, frankly, this whole year because it's imperative for me to get better at Super Collider. Like it's what I want to do. It's one of the main creative objectives with what I want to do. So before my next lesson with him at the end of this month, I've just been practicing Super Collider like an instrument. Like I'm a master at violin playing. I'm intermediate on piano. I'm a beginner when it comes to Super Collider, so there's a lot of practicing involved. Anyway, so that's why it's been a little like a wasteland for my YouTube comments and or content rather. It's just the nature of the beast, and we're good with that. One second, I'm gonna get back to the chat. Thanks you guys so much for listening. Hopefully I didn't bore you with that. We'll talk about writing now because it's minute 23. Man, I've been talking really fast. I've been talking like 30 minutes worth in under 24 minutes. One sec. So let's see what you guys have to say. And we'll get back to the yes, right here. Go subscribe to Cassette Hiss. I love that channel name. If you guys are interested in good music. All right. Ghost Planet says he owns Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. That's on your DS. Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I'd be interested in playing the the DS version. I love the old. I just like it. I do like the 64 version, at least of the Zelda games. Mario is Mario. It is what it is for what it was in its time. I enjoy it. I like being in that world, but it's like it's nothing to the Zelda experience. All right. Private Eye is recommending the Saint Seiya soundtrack. Yeah, thank you for recommending these soundtracks. Just don't recommend, guys. Don't be one of my students and recommend to me K-pop Demon Hunter. I listened to like 10 minutes of that soundtrack for the sake of my student, and she's gonna ask me what I think about it. I'm gonna have to lie to her to spare her 14-year-old feelings. It takes a lot to impress me with a soundtrack. It really does. All right. Brian Gilmartin says, Sound Engraver, off topic, but I went to the Garden State Comic Fest in June. I picked up two of Dan Fan's books. I don't know who that is. Reaper and Horizon Quest. Well, I hope it was good. I don't know who that is, though. Samuel Proctor says he bemoans, I wish I didn't sell my 3DS in high school. So many memories, and I still have the games I had. Yeah, I don't recommend the next generation Switch or Switch 2 or whatever it is. In fact, I've heard like horrible stories. I'm fine. I'm fine with the Switch that Prof gave me. So if you get the first Switch, you'll have well, no, I take that back. You'll have the original 64 games. Thank you for to play my game. Yeah. 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 Cool. It's great. Now we're talking about games. You will not regret my suggestion, guaranteed. I'll try to remember. I'll try to remember this on the replay. See if I can go back to the timestamp here and do that. Thank you. Thank you. You will not regret it. Good. 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 Suggest only excellent music, like masterpieces. No, K-pop Demon Hunter is amazing. It's the biggest thing on Netflix. Yeah, well, doesn't mean it's. I even read the story. I went to Wikipedia and I was like, it's all about girls feeling like a girl feeling guilty about herself and her secret identity, and then she comes to reconcile with herself, and it's like she accepts her demon marks, and the girl band has to get rid of the boy demon band, and it's like girl power, yay, okay, it's been done, it's been done. Uh, Final Fantasy fan says, I feel you about the K-pop Demon Hunters, although it did have some stuff I like. Avoid the K-pop fans like the plague. I've heard horror stories. Like I've heard like fans of Blackpink and stuff like will go to town demolishing you and try to ruin you. It like a sports fan thing. Yeah. All right, let's talk about writing. It's hour or it's not hour, but it's minute 30, almost minute 30. And I have a lot to talk about, you know. I have 6 weeks pent up. Actually, no, I only have a couple things to talk about, but I have a lot of energy, as you can see. So, one sec, let me grab some water for this. Sorry, I'm a little congested. So, you know, I've sort of just been out of the scene, and I know most people are still talking about things like AI, and it's gotten to the point where it's just so much. I've had to tune it out because whatever happens with AI, it ain't gonna stop me from writing science fiction and writing music. And so there are a couple things I want to talk specifically about writing. The first is the importance, like the absolute importance of having your own ideas. You know, despite all the things and all the shiny objects that AI, the shiny services that AI can offer you, it is it's so crucial to have your own ideas. That's the first thing. And then the second thing I want to talk about with in the way of writing, really in the way of art, but with writing in particular, is having the patience to create something yourself and then also make it exceptionally good and exceptionally special, even if it takes a lifetime, even if the endeavor and the journey takes up all. Second thing. So let's talk about the first thing. So I see all the time. Well, no, actually not all the time now that I've sort of tuned it out. But with the whole AI thing, I've seen people just want to say, listen, I don't use it strictly for writing. I use it strictly for ideas, to get ideas. And I want to say, on the one hand, on the surface, there's not really anything wrong with that, if I want to be fair. But I will say that it ends up cheating you your own experience. And the thing I want to really touch on is ideas that come from you are extra special. So let me actually just start with my own experience. I wanted to take the time off to back into my science fiction, like write 3 hour, 3 to 4 to 5 hour blocks of time on a Sunday. That's why I didn't do much streaming. I didn't do streaming at all. And I wanted to actually finish my short stories. I have like 4 short stories that they just need finished, and I have a few ideas for some new short stories. And I didn't actually approach my short stories this last month. I've been away. Instead, I've been in my longer fiction. Now, I'm I'm on the third draft of book one. Actually, I did my very first draft. Actually, was a It's really a compilation of the first two books, but I had to separate it out. I'm like, no, this is book one, this is book two. So I sort of technically wrote 2 books worth, and then now I'm just really fleshing it out with a completely new plot, completely new structure. Book one as my third draft. I know people say you shouldn't write so many drafts. I'm like, it's just how I am. My first draft is a completely different story from my third draft now. I think I said that right. Well, anyway, I've been working on my epic long fiction, my 5 book series. And so this is book one, and every book series, I've actually laid out the entire structure of my 5 book series, um, called The Unparalleled, as it stands right now. And well, actually, not just book one. Each of the 5 books have 4 distinct parts. Now, I do have chapter by chapter by chapter, but each book has very distinct sections. Okay, we're in this part of the plot. We're in this part of the plot, and it kind of helps me organize better. But I actually kind of like the structure. Oh, 5 books and 4 major parts in each book, and then chapters in between those parts. It just the layout, at least for this piece of work, is really good. It just looks good, it feels good, and I think that's how it's going to be. And each part of each book has a title in and of itself, but the chapters themselves don't have the titles. It's just like chapter 1, chapter 10, and so on. So I was working out. I'm in book 1, and I've finished part 1 and part 2, so I'm halfway done with book 1. And I know what's going to happen in part 3 and part 4 of book 1. I know what's going to happen throughout all my 5 books. But I've really spent the time just changing up the narrative, the structure, and the characters are it's all the characters have changed, but for the better. So I've been just really mulling over what's happening specifically in part 2. Part 1 and part 2, the narrative structure is there. But what I was really struggling in the last month was that my main protagonist, while dealing with something, she was kind of coursing through her mysterious predicament pretty quickly. Like when you're working in the thick of it, when you're working in the weeds of the writing, it feels like forever from getting one point to the next, depending on how deep you go, especially with the editing. But then when you read through it as a reader after taking some time away, I'm like, oh my goodness, like she's going through this too quickly. Like she's obviously in a predicament, but it's going boom, 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 and she's getting out of it too fast, or she's discovering something too fast. And while I don't want to, sedate the reader with too much exposition or too much writing, measures, we're not in music, chapters 28 to 34 needed way more cushioning. There needed to be more foreshadowing. There needed to be more pain in the process of what my protagonist is going through. And very specifically, she's an instructor who specializes in radio technology. So, okay, you got a smart character. Yeah, she's smarter than me if she can teach at this like high level, you know, training, radio technology, whatever. And so like the reader assumes, okay, she's in this specialty. She's obviously smart. Now, what she's discovering, and without getting too much in the details, because I don't want to spoil anything, obviously, she's discovering a few things that are very mysterious, involving her world, involving what's happened to those closest to her. And then she's also discovering, in conjunction with that, um, what one character calls an expansion of the physical world. So what she believes is impossible science, like that can't be possible. That's weird. That's strange. One character is saying, no, no, well, it's strange to you because this is what you believe, but rather this science that I'm presenting to you, involving very advanced mathematics, is an expansion of the physical world. This is where science fiction is really important. It's like it shouldn't be, even in kind of a sci-fi setting, it's always presenting to the reader, to the character, this almost hyper realization of how things are, but scientifically explained. Okay, well that's good enough. But in order for her to understand this new knowledge, she has to dive headfirst into mathematics she's not really comfortable with. And so up until this point, this last month, I was like, oh yeah, she has to get better at this math. She has to keep practicing in this kind of form of mathematics. Now, that's all well and good when you just you say, oh yeah, she's practicing here. Oh, okay, she's coming out of this here. And it didn't convince me. Like as a reader of my own stuff, I was like, I can't just take the writer's word for it that she's getting better at mathematics with practice. Of course, in the real world, when you work at something frequently, even under some mental strain, yes, you get better and better. That's logical. But I needed to see it for it myself. I thought the reader needs to see the actual process of these mathematics. How is she getting better at these mathematics that she's initially uncomfortable with? So so at first I played to her strengths, like, oh yeah, she would know the math behind a circle, the math behind a radio wave. Okay, and I'm going to explain that just a little bit in a good narrative. But then as the math gets a lot more comprehensive and a lot more complicated, I was like, I'm not a mathematician. I'm not as smart as my character. Uh, how can I present mathematics, something I'm not familiar with as a writer, how you see me as a sound engraver? I'm a musician and a writer. I'm not a mathematician. And how can I, how can I present this as a writer that's not gonna bog the reader down with technical terms or terminology and all that. And so I was a few Sundays ago, I was really thinking about what kind of math that exists today here, whether in theory or actual mathematics. What math exists now that I can kind of use as like a parallel analog to this world? And I have the math in mind. I'm not going to mention the actual name here, and I'm not going to mention the actual name in the story because it's based on a real mathematician who no one in my world would know, so it has to have a different name anyway. But the principles behind this mathematics does exist in our real world. I'm like, okay, cool. So where do I go with this? I need to use layman's terms and stuff like that. And I came upon this wonderful article. It's an 8-page article that it's these mathematicians of this college. I forget which college. It was the article was written in like 2015. And to be honest, guys, I ain't trusting anything written before 2020. Now that we have AI, I want to go to the sources behind, like 2015, where I can trust that actual PhD students are writing these articles. And so there was this wonderful 8-page article that took me all day to get through because I'm not a mathematician. And I was breaking points very, very, very slowly. And I was expanding those points to my very basic understanding of mathematics and presenting them in little notes and how it can work fluidly in the science fiction narrative. So explaining enough math for the reader to say, oh, she's working with this kind of principle or this kind of method. Okay, I can understand that, not even as a mathematician. And I make the reading experience very fast. I have a flow with the narrative because again, you don't want to bog the reader down with technical jargon and mathematical jargon. So I was breaking down these concepts in my notes. And one Sunday, I didn't even spend any time writing. It was pure research. And I was like, okay, I think I'm comprehending this. Okay, I'm speculating this mathematical theory here, but maybe I can use this theory for this plot point here. Plot point, axis, math points, coordinates, awesome. And then that one Sunday, that night, it was serendipity because the math in this real world, as theoretically explained in my layman speculation and suppositions, it it fit beautifully in the plot and it bettered the plot. Like it bettered my writing. And so the reader can go into this story when I publish it in a couple of years or whatever. The reader can go into the story having a grasp, oh, this character, while smart, is struggling with this mathematics and this is what she's working with. And I can get it. If I'm not a mathematician, I gotta understand it at the very basic level. but at a convincing level where I can see this character is smarter than me. Because people are like, how do I write characters who are smarter than me or smarter than you? It's like, this is how you do it. You do a lot of research and you go to the sources that you trust, like this wonderful 8-page article that just gave me so many ideas. Like the ideas that came out of taking the time and working through these mathematical principles. The plot, the mystery, the suspense, what's going on with this protagonist, because she's understanding something about herself that's very mysterious. There's a lot of mystery to this first book, a few pieces of mystery, and everything is coalescing and forming and coming together and falling into place, and I can comfortably now, with my world building, explain a hyper pseudoscience with some basic foundation that is our theoretical and everyday math as we have it here. Again, I'm not going to talk about like I don't write math like a mathematician, not at all, you know. I write math like a writer, like a writer of science fiction. And it really was serendipity, and I came out of that research. I came out of that day understanding something fundamental. And yes, it's true. Maybe you guys might be uncomfortable with this, and I understand. I am religious. I'm deeply religious, and I do believe what I had discovered with my process and with my research and taking the time through this. I discovered that this, or I believed rather, that this was something quite divine. I'm like, there's no way I could have come up with this myself. Now that sounds kind of strange. Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's just how when you take, like, I mean, entrepreneurs say this, like when you practice or you practice a sport or an instrument, when you take the time, when you really take the time and invest and devote yourself to the ideas you've already had to make it that much better, it's like this, I know I was inspired by something. Like I am religious, so I can say that without looking crazy. I was like, I couldn't have done this like just like instantaneously or whatever. This took time. This took a long time. So all that to say with my recent experience is that when you come up with ideas already yourself, you're going to find with practice, time, and devotion, you're going to find that your ideas are going to coalesce with other ideas. Like the molecular tapestry that builds this world, that's going to come from your ideas, your kernels, your sources of inspiration. And then you can go to resources, you can go to mathematical articles. Mathematical, is that a word? Yeah, probably. You can go to all sorts of sources on your own. I didn't go to AI. I didn't consult with AI. Like as soon as I was asking about like some sort of mathematical principle and then there was that AI overview, I was like, let me keep looking. And then I happened upon that article that was written by actual PhD students or maybe a PhD or maybe a professor of mathematics. Like a source I could trust, who a mathematician or maybe a few who broke down different principles and different methods in a way I could understand and try to like construct like with building blocks. And this experience only bettered the plot. And this experience only made the science in my science fiction that more plausible. Maybe not believable, like that wouldn't happen. Like I can imagine like someone like Neil deGrasse Tyson said, "Oh, that's not how mathematics works." I was like, it's science fiction. You can use like a hyper kind of math, a hyper advanced math to achieve an unrealistic thing that actually exists in that world because that's the beauty of science fiction. And my story is better for it from that. And that's not just a me thing though. Like I'm not saying I'm someone special or I'm some genius. This can happen with anyone who devotes his or her time with their ideas. And I'm very happy. Like I do call it serendipity. People might say, that's a little woo-woo. I'm like, I don't know how else to explain it besides practicing and getting better. And I hate to use this phrase because it's so overused, but trust the process. Like with an instrument, like with me getting better slowly at Super Collider, you gotta trust the process. So, what's my point with all that? Well, AI is not going to give that to you. Even if you say, "Oh, you know what? I got these wonderful ideas generated from AI." AI just, spat out this idea here. It's like, "Oh, that's what I needed. That's what I needed." And you know what? Okay, I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that like, okay, sure. But can I just encourage you? If you don't read a lot of books, if you don't watch a lot of well-written television or film or games or whatever, if you don't immerse yourself in comics and graphic novels and all sorts of types of stories and use those pieces of literature and that kind of art form as your mode of inspiration, I promise, like I can almost promise you, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm crazy to say this, but I'm deeply human. Um, I don't think you're going to get that serendipitous experience of things just coming together. Now they don't instantaneously come together. They do not instantaneously fall into place. This kind of thing I'm doing with my story, I started having ideas back in 2012 with this story. What are we, 2025? This is 13 years. I've been always thinking about this story. And now it's just getting better and better. It's like it's coming together, you know? That something like that does take time, but you do trust the process. And I don't think, even if AI gave you an idea, can you trust yourself to better develop that idea into some meaningful, plausible story? Maybe, but I doubt it. I think it has to come from you, from your original ideas, and then from stories of other people that have inspired may have inspired those original ideas. Now, the story I'm working in, I've never read a story like this before. I don't know how original it is, but I haven't seen anything like it. So there we go. Anyway, so that was the first thing I wanted to say with my writing experience is you got to trust the process. And I swear, just devote yourself to your own original ideas. I promise you, don't consult with AI. You know, just don't. Just have your ideas. Like just go out there, go to the absurd. That one of the greatest pieces of writing advice I had ever read was by James Scott Bell, and he said to make a great story, do not be afraid to go to the absurd. And I did that with another piece of speculative fiction I wrote like um and I had some very absurd scenes, but that it made the story all better. You know, you can always dial it back, but just have a yeah, journal your thoughts, journal your ideas, um, and work from there. And if I can really recommend something, uh, don't share your ideas with people. Keep them to yourself. And I'm not saying this, oh, because they're gonna steal my ideas. That's actually not the point. When you keep it to yourself, at least with my experience, this might not be your experience. When you keep it to yourself, it starts like it's this like molecular energy, just the little electron is just boo, 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 boo. And like the atomic relationship in your brain and in your imagination is just like going all over the place. Now that might be because I'm a woman and the woman's brain does this all the time anyway. Prof can attest to that. But it's like the energy in you it's going to come out in the writing itself, and then it will be published, and then that's the way you can share your ideas. So there you go. There you go. So that's the first thing. Let's see what you guys have to say. Oh, hey George Barrett, good to see you. Snoofkin, good to see you too. Or Snuffkin. All right. Okay, it's games. Let me grab water real quick. Oh, muted myself. Okay, So Samuel Proctor says, I just finished my second draft of my short story this morning, which so far turned out to have the page count of a novelette. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that's good. That's a good length. You can call it a novelette. I'll see if I can condense it back to a short story in the other drafts. Yeah, I mean, definitely give yourself the pacing and the length that you need. So if it turns out that the best form of that story is in fact a novelette, there's nothing wrong with that. I have a novella. Oh man, it's a thriller. I can't tell you where it takes place, but it's really cool. It's really cool. I was halfway done when I wrote it 10 years ago, so I need to finish it. And it's a novella. It meant to be a short story, but it turned out to be a novella and a real dark thriller. I think it's going to be like one of the darkest stories I will ever publish because it's really it involves a madman, a psycho who wants to kill a protagonist, and the setting is really unsettling. All right, that's cool though. Yeah, so I would say Samuel Proctor if it is a short story, yes. If it's the length of a short story, make it a short story. But you want to see where you can cushion a few things as well. If something reads way too fast, you want to be able to draw it out just a little bit too. But it does depend. Congratulations on finishing your short story. Maybe you can ask someone who knows math. Yeah, exactly. So Brian Gilmartin is saying consult with people. I would consult with people. Yeah. So I consulted with an article that was written by a person. It's a great article. I was like, dang, whoever wrote that could teach math, like really complicated math. There's this one I've been subscribed to this channel for a long time. I think since the pandemic, and I don't really watch his videos, but it's called three. Is it three brown, one blue, or three blue, one brown? And it's this guy who's a calculus. I think he's a calculus professor. He does stunning animation videos of very highly complex mathematics. And if you're interested in making, seeing how math is interesting, go to his channel, even if you don't understand what's happening. George Barrett says, glad to hear it. I have to figure out how to avoid the high shipping rate. Perhaps one of my nieces can buy it. Oh, you're talking to Brian Gilmartin about the comics. Yeah. George Barrett, where are you from? Like, don't say exactly where, obviously, but are you from Canada? Are you from the UK? Samuel Proctor says, the advice I was given for writing a smarter character than you is people who are smarter than you just process info faster than you. So keep rewriting and thinking what they'd do for a while. You have to, yeah, that's one good point. You have to show. See, I wasn't showing enough math. I was just saying, oh no, it's this mathematics again. And like the character like bites her lip and she's like, and I was like, I gotta actually show the process. I have to show the process of her really working through it. And she's discovering this mysterious thing that's basically affecting, I don't want to go too into it, but something's plaguing her, shall we say. Like something's really hurting her brain. And it's a mystery. It's been this lifelong mystery of hers, and it's only resurfaced now that she's working in this assumingly impossible science. But again, it's not impossible. It's an extension of science. Let's see. Brian says, I wish I could write, but I always have a tough time with how to actually start a story. Maybe I could start off with a fight since my main characters are martial artists. That's actually a really good piece of writing advice that I've seen thrown out there many times, including the actual writer, James Scott Bell. Start in the middle. He actually wrote a book called Right from the Middle. Now, it might not be like, I don't think maybe Professor Geek or I would do that. We like to start from the beginning, especially if we have our plot laid out anyway. But if you don't have like a beginning, right from the middle, right from the climax. So that would be a fight scene. And then you could kind of work your way around it. PK7 says, I'm really interested in math, so I would love to read it as a higher level student. That's cool. Well, see, I don't have the link on this computer. I have a link on my PC where I write my story. So, hey, Crystal Ashes, I'm so happy to see you. Good to see you. Um, yeah, it's just it was an 8-page article. The concepts were really chewy, even like for me, because I'm not into math. But I could get just enough of what the math was saying. Um, yeah, it's good stuff. PK7 also says Frank Herbert really was ahead of his time with Dune series of books and their predictions of AI. Yeah, I don't care if the whole world takes on AI. Well, takes on AI like they're about to fight AI. I will always compose music by myself. Always be inspired by my artists, my favorite artists and composers. Be inspired without taking from them. Same with writing. Like only the best written films, the best written television shows, the best written comics, the best written books will be my sources of inspiration. Nothing else. Ghost Planet says, I don't trust AI because it leads to Brainiac, Ultron, Cyborg, Superman, Terminators, and more. What if AI becomes deeply philosophical? What if AI starts musing about Socrates and Platonic ideas and stuff? That would be funny. And then AI would like chastise us for being so corrupt. Like you wanted to use AI to corrupt. You wanted to use us. We must teach you. That's also creepy though. Samuel Proctor says that was my struggle with this story I'm writing. Trusting the process. Yeah, it can take a long time. Up until a couple weeks ago when I decided, screw it, I have the outline and research and characters. Just go ahead, go at it head on. Yeah, it's kind of like with what Field Steel was saying with my super collider. He's like, um, you know enough now about this environment to be able to compose music now. And I'm like, okay. It's really hard. It's biting the bullet. It's like, oh, it's. I'm a very intuitive composer. Meaning I'll have an idea and then I'll just work at it, and sometimes I can, you know, flesh out a piece of structure very fast. Um, but not with Super Collider. Because Super Collider is troubleshooting very different breed. Yeah. All right. Any flaws can be fixed in the edit. Yes. Yeah. Prof and I, people say you shouldn't edit your stuff while you're writing. I was like, I'm sorry. Maybe that's why I'm so slow, but I write it and then I edit it. And then I write the next scene and then I edit that next scene. And then I write something new and then I go back a few chapters. Like I'm always editing. And people have warned, people are saying, no, if you do that so many times, then it's gonna be, you're gonna strip away the original intent. It's like, the original intent is the impetus, but I can safely say for me, it's only gotten better with my own personal editing, and with feedback from Professor Geek. Ghost Planet's birthday is coming up. He will be 32. Yeah. 32 was a great year for me. I loved being in my 30s. I still have a year and a half left. I'm holding on to it. Yeah, I wonder if I'll be depressed at 40. I don't know. All I want is a long enough life to get everything I want out as far as my art. And with that, I'll be happy. With that, I will be happy. It doesn't take a lot to make me happy. It really doesn't. Snufkin says, did you hear about Elon Musk starting experimentation on brain chips in the UK hospitals? Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with what he did with Doge, and I'm so glad he saved those astronauts, because they needed to come back to Earth after, well, like it was like 8 months, 9 months stranded in space. Gosh, That's like a Stargate episode right there. So I'm very happy with what he's done there, but like he just needs to find God, or at the very least stop experimenting with science. I called this well, I can't remember who said on what channel. I wish that was lighter. Dang. I hate that. It's so dark. But anyway, people are saying, "Oh yeah, DEI is going away, woke is going away," and it's not really. It's just going to stay dormant for a while. But I think what is going to replace it is transhumanism. I think people are going to like really try for transhumanism. It's going to be AI and transhumanism. That's going to be our next hurdle for the sake of our souls. And Elon kind of dabbles in that kind of stuff. And there's other people who dabble in that stuff. I forgot who. I think his name is Brian Johnson, who's not the filmmaker, but the another influencer guy who like I heard he's grafting his own child's DNA into his system or whatever to be rejuvenated or youth longevity. Like, don't mess with cloning. Don't mess with someone else's DNA, especially your child's. If that's so, it's messed up. It's messed up. This is science fiction. This is why I write science fiction. Like, stop playing God. No brain chips, no taking your child's DNA. I'm sorry, like you passed on the DNA. That's your role. Don't take it back. It's weird. Yeah. 3 blue, 1 brown. That's the calculus channel. That looks really awesome. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've subscribed to that channel for a while now. I don't watch his videos, but every time I'm like, I gotta like take a look at his videos. Really nice animations, visuals. All right. Yeah, me too. Sequencers are awesome. I mean, I don't work in sequencers per se. Although, well, SuperCladder is really it's a sound synthesis program, but you work in things like patterns and sequences. It's sequential. What did he call it? Fieldstall called it something sequential. I forgot what he said, but designing the code, making specifications, and then having sort of an indeterministic sequence of stuff. That's good. Samuel Proctor says, my story is set in late Roman Britain. I actually found a great Roman historian called Adrian Goldsworthy, where I got a lot of my research from. He even used his research to write his own fiction book. That's cool. So his own historical fiction book. That's cool. That's cool. Let me bring this up. The Vindolanda saga, all coming from the scraps of historical writings of Roman British. Very interesting. That's very interesting. I think historical fiction, if that's kind of what the genre is, I think it's not used enough or not. We don't see a lot of historical fiction. My mom wrote a couple historical fiction stories that were just wonderfully written. She doesn't write anymore. She decided she didn't really want to pursue that. But the short stories she did write, L.L. Cook is her name. You can still find it on Amazon. Great couple of short stories. And I wish historical fiction was a little more popular. I mean, maybe it is. It's just not like fantasy or science fiction or contemporary or literary fiction. My hair is kind of stringy. It's been very warm. Hey, Scorpiopio. Good to see you. Awesome. Let's see. Continue on down just for a little bit. So, okay, you know who I'm talking about, Brian Johnson. Yeah. I only heard him through David Stewart's channel. But when he was explaining what was going on, I was like, if that's true, that's kind of messed up. Like, don't guys, like, I know. I'm not young, but I'm not old. It's like, oh, what happened? Did I lose? It flashed for a second. Anyway, don't be afraid of getting old. It's nature, you know? Things pass. Not everything lasts. Yeah, like, oh, dude, just like that. Just like Plagueis. Yeah, Elon Musk, you can't play with the dark side of the force. Yeah, so I mean, I'll commend Elon for the good that he did, especially with saving the astronauts, but stop it. Stop it with the brain chips. Starlink is great. I commend him for his work in Starlink. Starlink has saved a lot of people a lot of headaches, especially people in flooding zones and losing Wi-Fi. Like, do, do stuff like that. Don't mess with people's brains. Anyway, go to Mars. What's like keep sending rockets into space. Like there's so much he's already done that's actually cool and ethical and fine for human discovery. But the whole brain chips thing, man. No. All right. Yeah, Ghost Planet makes a good point. God created DNA and it would be against his will for it to be altered. Yeah. All right. Let me talk about the other thing real quick. Oh, hey, Daniel Craig, if I didn't say hi to you. Good to see you. You're making your mom some dinner. That's so nice. Or getting ready for dinner. That's very nice of you. Let me real quick grab water and we'll talk about the next thing because it's really important. Also writing, but also art in general. So, one sec. I'm right here. Okay. So, uh, so keep your original ideas and just trust the process and devote your life. Your life. Yes, it will take your life in developing those original ideas. So that's the first thing. Don't trust AI. Trust your gut. Trust your sources of inspiration that were artists before you and contemporary artists, people or maybe even colleagues, but just it's so important to have original ideas. Now, the second thing I think is really very important, and I really want to very much dedicate my life to this for the rest of my life, how long the Lord would have me here on Earth. I've made it 38 cycles, Earth cycles around the sun. Uh, Here's to another 38. But or more hopefully. But I think it's really important. We are in a big old cultural shift when it comes to art. There are so many things to talk about, and I've expressed as much, with AI or with art posers and grifters and things like that. But in the information age, we really do we do have a major obstacle on our hands. We can be inundated. We can be drowning in so much information out there. And information in particular to art. CEOs of AI startups like with Suno and Udio and the writing AI stuff like Claude or whatever, write me a song, write me a piece of poetry, all that stuff. And the CEOs, who are not artists themselves, they're computer scientists, not knocking on computer scientists and programmers, but come on, be responsible. Anyway, they say, oh, well, now everyone can make music. Now our ideas can be brought to life. I'm like, those are your ideas. And you didn't bring it to life yourself. You had a machine bring it to life. And I won't even call it life. But by the way, if you ever look at these people praising the platforms of music making AI and poetry and novel making AI or whatever, all these people, all these testimonials and all these comments on YouTube will say, now my ideas can come to life. I'm like, you didn't trust your own self. Do it yourself and see if you could bring them to life yourself. And you cheated yourself. You cheated yourself. That's what I have to say. Anyway, so we're inundated. Like we are drowning in the sea of what people call slop. I'm not going to call slop because I don't want to mimic the colloquial right now. I want to call it dross. I call it dross. I call it worse than mediocre. I call it bad. I call it theft. I call it uh, moral ambiguity, you know? And so where am I going with this? Well, I'm going to somewhere important with this. You know, up until this point, up until 2024, up until the rise of AI, I had really believed that it was absolutely important for me as a composer and as a writer to be as prolific as possible. But now we have shifted to something very, very different. We have shifted to what I would say, uh, um, well, at least I'm going to be a spokesperson for this. I want us to shift to a new cultural and artistic renaissance that preserves the special, like the absolute special. What does that mean? Well, specifically creating something to the best of your ability and making a little masterpiece out of it as much as you can. Yes, as fast as you can. But being prolific to me now as an artist is not important. Why? Well, because there are hacks and frauds out there who are doing fine being prolific, and they say I've got a 12 book series here and I released it every month in the last year. And yeah, I'm not going to say it was written by AI, but it's like, you know what, because you released 12 novels in the course of a year, I'm going to speculate that you had some help. You had some machine helping you out. And and now frequency isn't as important to me. Like there's a band there there's an electronic music group I used to listen to all the time, and they've put out a few good recent albums, but they're old albums like from the early aughts. It always seemed like electronic music was always really good in the early aughts. They would release an album or an EP like once every 3 months, and it was so impressive to me. Like, oh my gosh, you're so good at your craft that you could just churn it out just every few months. We have a new album, and now that doesn't matter anymore. And even so, like there's this one writer that I've subscribed to. I'm not on his paywall. His name is Ted Gioia, and he's a very interesting guy with a lot of very interesting ideas, and he's a good writer when it comes to writing out those ideas. But I was subscribed to his blogs for $6 a month, thinking that I'm going to get a lot of good insight. Oh my gosh, I got too much good insight. The thing is, when you're on his paywall or whatever that's called, when you're subscribed to him, he's going to give you something. He's going to give you a full length article of different things like pretty much every day. But even when you're not subscribed to Ted Gioia, he's a prolific writer in that you always get something like 2 or 3 times a week. And so I keep seeing his name in one of my emails, and I'm like, I can't keep up. I can't keep up. I don't care about frequency anymore. I cannot keep up. You're not a podcast. You don't have to be something or someone I listen to every day. I'm fine with reading you once a week. You know, once a week is good. 2 times a week, especially 3 or 4 times a week, is too much. I can't keep up. And so people are like, I gotta keep releasing music. I gotta keep releasing stories. I gotta keep releasing articles. I gotta keep releasing videos and all this. And it's like, slow the crap down. Now, I'm kind of, shaming myself a little bit here because I don't really have a lot out there as it is. Like I've released music since 2019, but it's been very slow. I have a website. You've seen my website. I have all sorts of tracks, and I want to get better at my tracks, and I want to keep releasing music, no doubt. But my timeline has been I've really had to back off because it's almost been stressful to me. Like I gotta release this July. I gotta release this September, even if it's a single. Let me release another EP. And I'm like, slow down, slow down. But I'm 38 years old. Slow down. It's going to be done when it's done. And people will like when it's out. If they're not interested, they're not interested. You just take your time. You take your time. I only have one sci-fi story out there right now. Yes, I would like 10 short stories out there right now. I just have one. I just have one. I would love to release my novel in the next couple years. That's my endeavor, but it's just taking time. And why is it taking time? Well, because I want to make a masterpiece. Because why? Art is really important to me. Writing is really important to me. And now in the age of AI and the rise of AI, where everyone with a couple of prompts can generate a whole song with a backing track or whatever, or a full-fledged production, it's like, well, now that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Frequency does not matter. The only thing that matters in way of frequency is you practicing your craft. But releasing your things, like releasing your writing, it needs to be released when it's ready. You know, Tolkien did not release The Lord of the Rings until he was 62 years old. And oh my goodness, was it uber special. It was absolutely a special experience. It took the world by storm for good reason, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I've come to find that being prolific is no longer a necessity. It's no longer a goal I have. Yes, of course, I have so many stories to write, so much music to get out there, but I'm not going to, you know, hustle, you know? That hustle culture that we had in the 2010s, especially with YouTube and business startups and stuff. It's like that's art. The art will be made in the right time, in the appropriate time, even if it takes years. And so I'm sort of shaming myself. I don't want to say it like that, but I'm kind of putting myself out there, being a little vulnerable, telling you that, because like, what do I do when I stream and talk to you? I talk about art, and I talk about, oh yeah, I'm writing this, I'm doing all this, I'm working in Superclutter, I'm working on a single track, you know. And here's the thing. Even though I've backed off with my deadlines and my schedules, I have not backed off in my work. I still work on my art every day. And nothing has changed in that. And nothing has slowed down. I'm still working on my craft, on my art, to the best of my ability, every day, every week. But I'm no longer pushing myself to become this prolific artist. That does not matter to me. It just doesn't. What I prefer is giving to you something special. Now, actually, I need to take a quick break. I'm going to share my EP. I will come back because it's kind of like a two-parter, because I have a few more things to say. And hopefully I didn't talk too fast where it was annoying. But let me go ahead and put up my EP. Oops. We'll share that, but we'll go back to home. And let's do Sunny Reverie. And I'll be right back. I will be right back here. Let's see if you can hear that. All right, guys, thank you for that break. Definitely needed the break. I actually also had to change shirts. So, let me stop sharing, and then we will go back. Yeah, I needed that. Because it's really important that we're talking about keeping things special without I guess the danger of being prolific is that you just kind of just churn up stuff that might not be little masterpieces. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. So, so we were talking about that. Let me see if I just want to see if I can piece my thoughts together. So, well, let's actually just start with this. So, um, if you may, some of you guys might be familiar with David Stewart. He's a YouTuber who has a lot of interesting commentary, like a lot of interesting thoughts. He's pretty versatile in his mode of thinking. Like I can't even think about being um as specialized in different things like history and art and all that stuff. So he's actually had a long following on YouTube. Just because people find him engaging. He's an instructor and all of that. And he's been a prolific writer. He actually has a lot of books out there, fantasy, sci-fi, some horror, some short stories, and I think he's developed a readership through that. And he even has this book, this nonfiction book called The Keys to Prolific Creativity. I think I have a digital copy of it. I read through it a couple of years ago, and I was like, yeah, I agree. We should be prolific in our creativity. Uh, and um, and he a few weeks ago, he on his live stream was talking about just AI and the problems, the creative problems, the ethical problems it's caused, rightfully so. And I started thinking, it's like, oh, you know what is he thinking, like about being prolific, because people can churn up any songs and any novels that they want now. And it wasn't well, I wasn't really thinking what he was thinking, but I was kind of thinking of this for myself. And then not 2 weeks after, maybe 1 or 2 weeks after that live stream, he really just started becoming very frustrated. Like not visually frustrated, but I could see the creative frustration of him being prolific as a writer. And he also has this music channel that's ambient guitar, and he's done live performances or recording off the cuff, and posting that on YouTube. So he's also a pretty fairly prolific musician in the way of the YouTube sphere. And I could see he's creatively frustrated with people just throwing slop out there, throwing dross out there. And he decided, and I thought this was good. I thought this was really good. He decided that he wanted to take a step back from publishing a lot of stories. And he's got a family and people to take care of, and he wants, when he does publish something, to have it be very, very, very special. And one way he's done this, and I really do think this is the right way if you are a writer, and that is going back to the physical copy, going back to the physical media argument that Professor Geeks especially has made, how important that is. And recently, I'm not really interested in his fantasy. I did read one story of his, and I thought it was fine. It just wasn't my thing. But I do support this endeavor, and he's done this Kickstarter where he's had this. I think it is one story called King Leopard, which actually does sound like a very interesting story. Beautiful book cover. He had one of his artist friends do an illustration of the book cover. It's a nice looking cover. It's good looking in green. The lettering's in gold. Now recently he's done a blue and gold cover, which also looks nice because blue and gold, especially dark blue, looks really, really good with gold. And he's done a Kickstarter for this hardback, this with maps, with special items, keepsakes, really. Like they're keepsakes for this physical book of this massive story he's written. And I thought, that's it. That's the ticket of shifting to, rather, this cultural renaissance where we do need whatever we produce. don't even want to say produce anymore because art to me is not a product. People think it is. People really, especially indie artists, they fall into this trap thinking art is a product. Yes, you can sell your art, no question, but don't treat it like a business before you treat it like art. That's what I'm gonna say. But anyway, my mic's been low this whole time, so hopefully the audio's been okay. Um, but this idea of this something special, like a keepsake, like something that David Stewart is really proud to have written, and then in a beautiful binding, in a beautiful hardcover. And it's like, that's it. That's what it needs to be. That's what it needs to be for whatever your writing endeavors or your artistic endeavors. Like it doesn't have to be frequent, but it has to be good every single time. And even more than good, it has to be special every single time. And something I guess you could say J.R.R. Tolkien himself was not a prolific writer, but the stories he made, it's still popular. I mean, Lord of the Rings is always revisited as a piece of literature that people go back to time and time again. Whether you're religious, not religious, they know something special. And this is a little bit, we'll end the topic with this, because it's very important. Just wish the lighting was better so you could see. I don't know why it keeps getting dim. Wait, you know what? Wait a sec. I should have done this a long time ago. I could have done. Hello. Brightness here. I don't know why I didn't do that. That's right. I actually dim my screen when I listen to music and write on my other computer. Didn't even think about that. Well, all right. So first 90 minutes, very dim. Nah. Wow. Hey, it's been a long time. It's been a long time since I've streamed. So anyway, yes, I do have the light for this now. So yeah, I wanted to talk about something very, very special that I've come across. Professor Geek and I we pre-ordered this a while back on the St. Paul Center, so Catholic, beautiful Catholic institution, highly educated people, and a great group of scholars that write a lot of books. And I have got to recommend. I've already recommended this before, but if you're a serious writer who let me start with this. If you're a serious writer who deeply feels for the significance of storytelling and what it does to us, what it does for humanity, what it does for our culture, I highly recommend this scholarly piece, but a well-written piece of nonfiction called The High Hollow, Tolkien's Liturgical Imagination by Ben Reinhard. This is the most I've just finished it this morning. I have the appendices to read, but I finished pretty much the bulk of the book today. I just kind of worked at it slowly, read through it very slowly. It's not that I'm a slow reader, it's just I wanted to spend as much time as possible on this book. I will be always rereading this book. This is the most important book. In conjunction with Tolkien stories themselves, this is the most important book I have ever read. I know that's a big acclaim, or claim, I should say, but it's true. For different reasons I can't go into right now. I might read a couple passages. It might be its own separate stream, to be honest, but this really ignited in me the importance of beautiful writing, important writing, critical writing, and really why this book pretty much is a perfect summation of what made Tolkien's Lord of the Rings take the world by storm. And yes, it is deeply religious. It doesn't have Catholic parallels, but it has Catholic commentary on it, religious commentary, and even if you're not Catholic, it's good. It goes into the world of the fairy and why Tolkien deeply admired the mythic and the fairy and why we need to go back to the fairy, why we need to go back to the mythic. Tolkien had these sensibilities pre and post industrial age. He knew what the world was starving for. And it's explained in this book. It's so good. And there's so many good resources in this book. In fact, actually, it was so monumental for me to have read this book. I wrote a little review in a journal. When I have something very important, I don't really handwrite a lot. You could see like, so this is August 3rd of today, and then this is December 3rd of 2023. So I haven't really wrote a lot in this very special journal. But when I do, when I think something is monumental, I have to handwrite it and I have to put it in this very special journal. And I haven't written a lot. It's only like I still have so much journal left, you can see. But I need to keep my handwriting up because I'm pretty proud of my handwriting. I've always had somewhat good handwriting. But anyway, uh, uh, I try to jot my ideas down, handwrite my ideas, like try to think on the fly while writing by hand when the thought is so important, to me, at least in my experience. So give or take some grammatical errors, I'm just gonna go ahead and what I wrote this morning after reading the book. August 3rd, 2025. I finished reading The High Hollow, Tolkien's Liturgical Imagination by Ben Reinhardt. I attest that this, in conjunction with Tolkien's stories themselves, is the most important book I've ever read. It may be frivolous to claim that it has changed my life, but it has changed my perspective. Or rather, it's enhanced my perspective. That is, the perspective to pursue, to preserve, and to protect art as an innately religious experience. The High Hollow beautifully argues the significance and, moreover, the impetus behind the renown of Lord of the Rings. My whole purpose in writing science fiction rests inside the revelations of this book. This is an important book if you're a serious writer. It is written in a scholarly way, in an academic way, but just spend your time on it. I just can't recommend this book enough. I will, just like with people with Lord of the Rings. Oh, sorry, I'm a little there. Just like it is with Lord of the Rings with a few people, um, I will be reading this book again and again. I might need a few copies, just to keep one copy really nice. It's a beautiful book physically. It's a beautiful book physically, but the beauty is in the revelations I discovered in this scholarly piece by Ben Reinhardt. And I thanked God for Ben Reinhardt today. I prayed for his family. I prayed for nothing but blessings for this individual who spent his academic career studying Tolkien and going over all sorts of resources involving Tolkien's life. I'm just amazed. Like I can't give enough praise for this book. So I highly recommend it. But even its physical representation, this is a very special book with a very special message. Has very special significance behind Tolkien's life, his commentary, his own thinking, his own liturgical experience as a Catholic, and how that shaped the imagination of his world building in Middle Earth. It's deeply significant. And I thought, you know what? Like, can I do an analog, but for science fiction? Now, I'm not saying can I do an analog of what Tolkien did for high fantasy for science fiction. I mean, yeah, that'd be a really awesome endeavor. That'd be a good objective. But what I mean to say is, it's. I actually I just lost my train of thought because I'm kind of deeply moved by this already. But I I would love to. This is nonfiction. Tolkien is fiction, obviously, but I would love to do a type of analog, a type of archetypal imitation of what this book, this nonfiction book, represents, and then also what Tolkien represents, but just with science fiction. Deeply special, deeply meaningful book. Can't recommend it enough. Um, and actually, it's not even 7:30, so maybe yeah, there's just a lot to this book. Um, let Yeah, I think reading a couple excerpts, at least one, will be really important because this is just why art is so important in general. Um, you know, um, you know, in the 1960s, The Lord of the Rings took the world by storm, and people intuitively know why. But his friends like C.S. Lewis would comment on the impact of Lord of the Rings, why people could really grasp it, why people were starving for it, because again, this was coming out of World War II. This was coming out of the 1960s with this incessant materialism. We have incessant materialism in the information age. The 1960s, the 1950s were hyper materialism. It was a cultural flaw coming out of World War II, and people say, "No, never again this war. Let's really live large in life." And Tolkien was seeing that. I mean, yes, with serving in World War One, but then after World War II, when he's a professor at this point, he's a scholar, and he's trying to find spiritual meaning not just for himself but also for his family, and then also ultimately really the world through his Lord of the Rings work. Or the work that is Lord of the Rings. I'm going to read a paragraph. Oh, it's so good. So good. I can't read it all. I want to. Let's see. Let me just yeah. There's going to be 2 paragraphs I want to read because it's so important. You don't have to stay for this, but it's so important. So this is Lewis's take on why the Lord of the Rings swept over culture. This is the cause. If this disenchanted materialism was for Lewis the disease of modernity, the Lord of the Rings was the cure. In his final review of The Lord of the Rings, Lewis explored the nature and purpose of mythic fantasy, what it is, and what it does. As Lewis says, quote, "The value of myth is that it takes all things and restores them to the rich significance which has been hidden by the, quote, veil of familiarity, the veil of the mundane. By putting bread, gold, horse, apple, or the very roads into myth, we do not retreat from reality. We rediscover it. As long as the story lingers in our mind, the real things are more themselves than we realize. This gives us our first point." Now the writer is saying, this gives us our first point. In a world that has lost a sense of meaning, myth takes common things and restores them to their significance. We might use Tolkien's terms and say that myth restores, quote, "the wonder of things." But a more dramatic statement is offered by Lewis in his earlier review of the novel. In The Lord of the Rings, he claimed, "We see, quote, the gods return to earth." So not complete escapism. Through myth, through fantasy, we are rediscovering the beauty of the world. It's no longer mundane. Through the perspective of the mythical heroes, we are seeing the world for what it is. We're seeing the need for the significance of what we have in this world. So that was Lewis's commentary. And he had another, he wasn't a friend, but he was kind of a contemporary, called Pepler. And I want to see if I can find, or was that him, or, yes. Or maybe another friend of his. I'll see if I can find it. Let's see. So good. I probably can't. I gotta read this, even if it does make sense. I'll give you some context. So further into this last passage of the book, he's talking about how even people who are not religious can really take on the significance of the religious themes of the Lord of the Rings, and seeing the wonder of the world, seeing the reverence of the world, and some divine order of things in our everyday experiences because of myth, because of storytelling, because of fantasy. And he had a Louis Boyer, I think, is another friend of his, and he's talking about how civilization, especially in the 1960s and 1950s and 60s after World War II, became not just disenfranchised, they became disenchanted just with things. Like things, they were just so concerned with the material. And they couldn't bother. There was a danger. There was a cultural danger of taking the spiritual completely out of not just religion and going to church, but also just in the everyday. And Tolkien's Lord of the Rings didn't necessarily convert a person to religion, but it was symbolic enough. It was um, a, a a reminder, an impression, enough of an impression to at least stay with them, like to hold them for a moment before going back to the mundane. So let me see if I can give you some context, if I gave you enough context there. Um, this is not to say, of course, that this is the book now. This is not to say, of course, that Tolkien converts all his readers. Only that reading Tolkien can prepare for the way of conversion. Going to the divine, going to the spiritual. The reason for this is the unmistakable imaginative power of his works and the decidedly liturgical shape of that imagination. As Pepler, a Catholic commentator, noted, the liturgy had left, quote, the form of the victim of Calvary imprinted on Tolkien's mind. So really associating Frodo's journey and Frodo's sacrifice as the eucatastrophe, as with Christ. And Tolkien transmitted it to the worlds he created. So he took this analog, this Christ analog of Frodo, and he transmitted it to a story, to the worlds he created. In place of a world dominated by materialism, mechanization, and the ever-growing thirst for power, he gave us a world defined by wonder and reverence and sacrifice. The Paschal mystery that crowns the liturgical year at the heart of The Lord of the Rings. Those who read Tolkien appreciatively have the liturgical shape recreated, if only temporarily, in their minds. So it's shaping, it's fashioning your own imagination for the spiritual, for the divine, for something breaking you out of the materialism, out of the mundane. So what's the whole point of me saying this? Well, first of all, wonderful book. It's like that should be my mission with art. Like it is to point to the higher order of things, or to point to the good. Like every single piece of music I write, even as a shadow, even as just a little impression. Man, I wish I had kept it like that earlier. Even just as an impression, or my stories, my science fiction stories. I don't suppose I will have that like Catholic impression, of course, as Lord of the Rings has, but like deep meaning, like truth. What makes us human? What makes us good? What makes us not good? What makes, evil, good? All those things that are really the higher order of things that are beyond the material. And that's what I aim to achieve with my writing. And that's going to take a long time, a lifetime. And I'm okay with that. But I'm still working at it as I go. I still will release music when I do. I still will get better at Super Collider as I get better at it as an instrument, and I also release short stories and also long epic science fiction. But that's what we should strive for as artists. Like whatever you are working on, just devote your life to it, because it's that meaningful. It's that important. Not just important to you. It's important to your community, to the world. The world was starving for something when Lord of the Rings came out. And we're seeing the same thing. It's not the industrial age anymore. It's the information age. And no one, we don't know it, but there's ubiquitous starvation for something that is remarkable, for something that is truly unique and a masterpiece. And you can't do that with AI. And you can't do it with constant slop out of Netflix, out of Disney. And people will say like Western culture is dead. It's like it's not if you preserve it. Preserve it. Keep talking about the stuff you love to talk about that came before, and then try to make something in the wake of that, or not in the wake of that, but continuing along that trail, walking that trail. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say. I mean, I had a lot to say, and it's 2 hours, and I knew that was going to happen. But making things special, making things little masterpieces, no matter how small the project is or how just that's your endeavor. The world needs it. The world needs it. So, yeah. Samuel Proctor says, I bet Tolkien also looked at materialism in the Roaring Twenties too. Yeah, exactly. All right. Okay. Let me go to the comments, and then I think in a few minutes I will be done, and I will be back to. I'll keep streaming every Sunday. It's very good. Very good. Okay, so I think I got through pretty important points. Samuel Proctor says Adrian Goldsworthy, legit academic who doesn't put modern politics in his works. Hey, that's important. Very important. Mary Beard, the current most popular Roman historian who just quote, historian who just reinterprets everything in postmodern lenses. Yeah, that's unfortunate. You like history should be the one topic you don't see in through a modern lens. You would think it's you think that'd be common sense, but it's not. Yeah. Taking off, says Brian Gilmar. Good night to everyone. Okay, have a good night's sleep. Let's see. Samuel Proctor says, "Oh yeah, I finally got to listen to Asimov's a couple months ago. I, Robot. I liked it. I still haven't read his Robot series. I've read everything else. I mean, I've read his Robot short stories. Good, good, fantastic. It looks like you guys do have a few things to say. I don't know. Slop is a pretty apt description. I just don't like following. I don't like saying slop because everyone else is saying slop. So I'm saying dross. I mean, it means the same thing, but I try not to parrot the colloquial. I really try. I didn't say SJWs when that was a popular term, and I try not to say. But yeah, if I say slop, I'll say slop. Sometimes the current colloquialisms can nail the right words. Sometimes, well, I agree with that. I do agree with that. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'm still to this day very proud of the EP. I'm trying to not mimic, but not imitate either, but I'm just trying to keep that as a reference for my other stuff. I sort of did it with Azure, but looking back, I'm like, oh, I know what to do now. Well, I know what to do. It's how to do it. That's the obstacle. Samuel Proctor posits that though I think you could be frequent if you can. I mean, yes, there is an art and skill of those monthly comic writers and artists, the pulp writers too, like Robert E. Howard and Lovecraft. Yeah, like oh my gosh, is it Scott Adams who did Dilbert, or is that his name? I'm sorry, I'm blanking on his name. Yeah, I mean he was frequent and all that. It depends on the project though. Like, you know, an album is a very big music project, so therefore it should be pretty special. A single is a smaller project, and so you can probably crank out a single a month. That's been my goal, even though I haven't been that successful. But in any case, yeah, I'm not saying don't be frequent if you can be, but it's not as important. It used to be currency. It used to be the thing that legitimizes you, if that makes sense. I'm not saying you're illegitimate, but like if you're not frequent, but it was the thing that would make you stand out among other people of your specialty. I forget the word I'm looking for. But anyway, good night, fellas, says Snufkin. Hands yellow, heart red. I think it's the emoji that is like this with the hearts. StreamYard doesn't accept emojis. All right. So anyway, yeah, I think we'll end it there. So yeah, streaming is back. I'm back on Sundays. I'll think of a topic to talk about. I just had so much to say, and I hope you guys liked it. But yeah, thank you guys for listening. Thanks you guys for coming back after 7 weeks. You know, so I really appreciate that. It was important for me to take the time off. I had a really good writing experience. And I'm still writing during the weekdays too, but I needed those Sundays. So thank you so much for watching and listening, and I'll see you guys next week. Until I see you next week, keep producing, preserving, and promoting that good art you love, and I will catch you then.